Ribbit.
That was the first thing that just got recorded. We're keeping it. We're going to keep that there. That's going to be up there. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast, USMNT XT. That's us. I'm Tim. This is Ryan. We are here. We are here to talk about the United States taking down Mexico in the CONCACAF Nations League final. There have been 3 renditions of this event, correct? And the United States has won all 3 of them. The back-to-back-to-back champions. I think it's official. It's finally time to say it. United States are the kings of CONCACAF. We are now no longer the men in the mirror. Or we are now no longer looking at the men in the mirror. We are the men in the mirror. So
correct.
Ryan and I are going to break all of that stuff down. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We are so glad to be back. So don't miss it. Stick around. All of that stuff is coming up. All right, let's get right to it, though. First things first, last podcast, we made some predictions. Ryan, I believe your prediction was 3-2 United States with a 4-2 win in penalties. And I believe that I said 2-0, and I believe that I was correct. So let's just start off with that one. We got it right. But what I should note is that both Ryan and I picked the last 2 previous results of the United States versus Mexico, the penalty win. Or no, the 3-2 result in the semis, right? Because it wasn't on penalties, or it was on penalties? Did we beat Mexico? I can't remember. We beat Mexico so many times at this point. I can't remember when they were. Stats to brag about before we get into this game. The United States has now not lost to Mexico in over 4 years. Mexico has not scored a goal against the United States now in over 2 years. The last time we lost to Mexico was in 2019. We are almost at 5 full years of not losing to Mexico. This is coming from our childhood, growing up where it felt like every single year we would struggle to beat some of the other teams only to play Mexico and stand here with our fingers crossed and lose 4-0, 5-0. Ryan, do you remember some of those games growing up?
Yeah. I mean, it just shows how much farther that U.S. soccer has come, and I don't want to. I made this comment to you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say when you said that.
While we were watching the game, is that I don't think Mexico has gotten worse. I still think they are like one of the better nations in CONCACAF. I think it's just the U.S. has gotten that much better.
Right. So I'll put that into context. When Ryan and I were chatting, I had said, I referenced a comment I made 2 years ago, and you can find it. If you've been following us, if you've been watching along with us, you'll remember the comment. I said, is this really the decline of Mexican soccer? That's what it feels like. It feels like Mexican soccer is declining, right? That's a comment that I said to you. So your response was that it's not really that. It's more reflection of the United States, correct?
Yes. Because watching Mexico play other teams, they're still good. Right? Like, okay, yes, they lost. They haven't beaten us in a while, and they've lost to us the last couple of times. But you can go to the World Cup. They didn't perform poorly. Yes, they didn't make it out of group stage, so most people would be like, that's not a good showing. But, like, they won one of the games. They were basically through until, like,
they were
all of that happened
correct.
In group stage.
They were in one of the groups where, like, it came down to not just, like, the final game, but it came down to, like weird tie breaks in, like, goals for.
Correct. And they draw Poland, I believe. They lose to Argentina, who had just lost to Saudi Arabia.
Right, and what was the score of that game? Because I felt like they were, like, somewhat in it.
The Mexico-Argentina game? I want to say they lost 2 or 3-0.
Okay, so they got crushed.
And then they played Saudi Arabia and they beat them. So they go 1-1-1, which is exactly the same almost as the U.S. We just go 1-0-2 with 2 draws.
Right.
right? So that's not bad, especially when you see who they played. They drew Poland, we drew Wales, probably equal caliber.
Right. Yeah, so when you looked at it, it was like
they lose to
we're 1
Argentina,
point
who
better.
wins the World Cup, right? We tie England, probably both same caliber teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then they beat Saudi Arabia, we beat Iran, about the same caliber teams. The only difference there is we were able to draw the powerhouse in our group, they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't necessarily bad. Like, I get it, they don't make it out. It sucks. But I don't think it's their program has gone rock bottom or is bottoming out. I think it's that CONCACAF teams are getting better. You can see that with Canada, Jamaica. I would even go as far as saying Panama and Costa Rica.
So but, and to give a little bit more context to this. So when I started, I said, we haven't been scored on in 2 years. Mexico hasn't beaten us since 2019. That's a long time, but it's only 3 games. Right? So the United States 2-0 against Mexico in 2024 in this Nations League final. We beat Mexico 3-2 with the extra time stuff that Ryan talked about in 2021.
Yeah, but we also beat them 3-0 in 2023.
Oh, this isn't pulling. Sorry, this wasn't pulling all the results. Yeah, we have. Okay, so we have a 2-0, a 3-0. Yeah, I went to a website and I was like, oh, it's going to tell me the results, and so I was like pulling at it, and it wasn't
like
pulling.
We've got to draw to them in our final 3 group stage games, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm really surprised that it didn't just pull.
Stage.
Our final, all the results.
Our final qualifiers. We have that draw to them, right in Mexico, which is basically a win when you think about it because it's in Mexico, right? Then we beat them at home the previous cycle.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. So here it is. So 2024 2-0. Yep. 2023 Nations League semifinal 3-0. We play a friendly against them and draw 1-1. We play in March 24th of 2022 for FIFA World Cup qualifying. We have a 0-0 draw and then a 2-0 win for us. 2021 Gold Cup final 1-0 us. 2021 CONCACAF Nations League final is 3-2. Then we have a friendly that we lost to them in 2019, but the next real game that we lost was the 2019 CONCACAF Gold Cup final. We lost to Mexico 1-0 in 2019. Yes. So correct. If you're looking we haven't lost in 2019, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it's 6 games. So we're 4-0-2 against Mexico in the last 6 games since 2019. In that time span, two very, very crucial things happened. Well, I guess really one crucial thing, but it tied into a second. The first one is that the United States failed to qualify for the World Cup. And in doing so, took all the spotlight off of us, took all of the media hype off of us, took everything, and forced the United States to have to deal with the harsh reality of who we were and hit the reset button. And when I was talking to Dad about this, when you look at the men's team now, when you and I were growing up, right? I think about the players I saw on the field and my ability to relate to them, right? So here I am, as a child, it's tougher, right? 6, 7, 8 years old, you're just watching. You start to get into middle school and high school when we're playing. You're trying to find the players on the field that you can relate to. Landon Donovan wasn't a super relatable player, right? Yeah, he joined when he was young, but there was just something about his dynamic. He wasn't super relatable. The rest of the guys were a lot older, right? I mean, even the way that the media presented them with Arena and not Chirundolo. There was a couple other midfielders Boca. They just didn't have that, right? And then as we get older, we have Jermaine Jones, Michael Bradley, Ricardo Clark, Aguchi Onyewu. We have Green and Robert and there's just so many random guys coming through, and it didn't feel like it, right? But right now, if you're a 16-year-old kid, if you're a 12-year-old kid, and you're watching this national team, right? We entered that recent World Cup as the youngest squad or the second youngest squad in the world.
Made the World Cup.
That made the World Cup, right? How much of that is going to continue to impact future soccer going forward in the United States?
I mean,
that's a bad question. Do you agree with me that we're more relatable now than we were before? That's the real question I want to ask. Do you believe that the players on the field are more role modelish? It's easier to relate to as younger adults than it was in previous years?
I don't think so. I think some of your reasoning has to come with success, and it's easier for you to relate to them because you see them as they're performing better, and it's easier to look up to people who are winning.
That's fair.
Most people don't look up to, the team that's in dead last every year. But because that being said, when you're listing all those guys, every goalie that's come out of the U.S. soccer
has been a stud. Has been an absolute
and I've
stud. Correct. Well, and that goes to your point. It's the success, right? Like, we looked up to Tim Howard. We looked up to Brad Guzan. We looked up to
Friedel.
Brad Friedel. Now Matt
Casey
Turner.
Keller.
Casey Keller. Every single goalie the United States produced. Yeah, continue. You're right.
And I think that helps. So we're looking at a U.S. team that has an actual ability to win Copa America, has the actual ability to win the World Cup in, what is it now, 2 years? 2026, right?
Yeah, 2026. So about 2 years and 3 months.
Yeah.
That is crazy
I'm not saying
to
they
think
will.
about that. 2 years and 3 months.
I'm not saying they will, but going back to when we were growing up, like playing in high school, if somebody came up to you and said, hey, the U.S. could win the Copa America, you're going to laugh at them.
Right.
Right? As much as you wanted them to win, you knew they didn't stand a chance, because as soon as they went to play in Argentina or a Mexico or a Brazil, you knew they were just going to get blown out.
Just absolutely destroyed.
And now it's not that. Like, we could stand our own against them. I'm not saying we'll win, but looking at how the U.S. plays against an Argentina or a Brazil, there's a chance there. If we don't give up easy goals,
right,
there's a chance the U.S. hangs with them until late and does the classic USA fashion of getting the late goal or the late equalizer and going and running with it.
Right. So speaking of late USA fashion, I'll read to you the post. This is what I posted on Facebook. So I'll kind of do like my nostalgic moment. So watching the Mexico game, right? Watching the Mexico game, you and I in the chat watching together. Tyler Adams hits that first goal, right? And from the angle that we're at, I'm losing my mind. Like, my wife actually yelled at me because she thought somebody broke into our house.
Correct. I remember that.
Yeah. So, and then, Gio Reyna scores, and we're sitting there. We've won. Game's over. We've hung up, and I'm just sitting there in silence for a second. And I go on Facebook and I said, I won't read the first part, but I know it's not the World Cup trophy, but there was a long time growing up where I thought the United States was destined to be a mediocre nobody who couldn't beat teams with smaller populations in Rhode Island. I remember Mexico thrashing us 4 or 5-0 consistently. We had moments for sure, but all the real fans knew it was all luck, and there was no way that we were going to consistently replicate that performance. The handball against Germany, the 3-2 loss to Brazil, the bus park against Belgium, and a failure to qualify for the World Cup all feel like a lifetime ago. We are not the same team. USA Soccer has been reborn, both stateside and overseas. It's not just a stupid chant anymore. # I believe that we will win. And I wrote this because, that was like the reality for so long that it had become just how I felt. That you would you'd get excited to watch World Cup qualifying because that's really the only time we were going to be able to show ourselves, because by the time the World Cup showed around, you were just going to be pulling your head, hat over your head and kind of barely watching and hoping we'd pull something out. And we'd have some miracle moments, but they weren't sustainable. They weren't replicable. Like that wasn't the game plan going forward. You know what I mean?
Correct. And obviously every team needs a little bit of luck. It helps. Mm-hmm. Right?
We needed a lot of luck.
Yeah. And am I going to say that Tyler Adams' goal didn't have a little bit of luck to it? It did. I mean, nobody steps to mark to him. That shot goes through the sliding defender's legs. Mm-hmm. Right?
So that brings me to my first question to you. You're the goalkeeper in this group. Is it time for Guillermo Ochoa?
It's been time.
You're saying it's been time, but now it's definitely time.
I think I said this the last time we beat Mexico, and we were talking about how Mexico needed to win a trophy, otherwise they were in trouble. And I said they need to give a younger goalie the opportunity to start playing so that when a trophy rolls around, they have a chance.
So you think that this is hurting them? This is hurting them more so even going forward because they're denying younger players the opportunity.
Correct.
You think this is going to get worse?
And I'm not saying that a younger goalie or somebody else makes those saves. But when I watch the Tyler Adams strike, Ochoa's age shows.
100%.
5 years ago, he makes that save. Same with Giovanni Reyna's.
Agreed.
Right? So now, granted, I could be completely wrong, and watching it in slow motion and seeing everything, maybe he doesn't even have a chance.
Adam's shot hit him in the hand.
Maybe he doesn't even have a chance 5 years ago, right? Maybe those shots are just unstoppable.
Right.
But from watching them in slow motion and seeing them, I think a younger Ochoa or a younger goalie who's got the experience makes those saves. Right? If we're shooting against Ederson or Allison or, Pickford or Ramsdale.
Even Blake, right? Jamaica's goalie? Is that who that is? Even Blake. Yep. He probably makes those.
I think they make those saves. And again, right? It's hard to tell from watching in the stands and knowing what's going through the goalie's head, and Adams' shot does go through that defender's legs, so there's at least a split second or two where Ochoa doesn't see it.
And sometimes that's all it takes, right? You just don't. Correct. You don't have your feet set for a split second, and
right. But it to me, it just looks like he was slow and sluggish to get moving in the direction he needed to go. And then the Reyna one, it's just almost as if he just doesn't have the ability to do it anymore. Because I think back to...
He got caught drifting just a step to his left, and it was too much.
I think back 14 years when I was graduating high school, right? Mm-hmm. Watching Ochoa play and being like, holy shit.
Dude, he was disgusting.
He's the best goalie in CONCACAF, right? And that's when we have Casey Keller.
Right,
and
exactly.
Tim Howard
exactly.
Playing.
Yep.
And I'm sitting here going Ochoa's better. I'd rather have him.
Yep.
And now I'm sitting here
thinking... He was almost the bane of our existence at many points. That, you Correct. Were even if we get through their defense... Right, exactly. Keylor Navas. Even if we get through their team, it's going to be a miracle goal. It's going to have to be that goal that goes in.
Correct. And I just think that he's still playing because of the leadership role. And Mexico has gone through a lot of players. They've got a lot of young guys, a lot of new guys. And having somebody like Ochoa out there who has played, and he's played with plenty of new guys before, and he has that leadership mentality, and he is a great leader. He's a great player on and off the field. He's one of the guys that has publicly come out and said he dislikes the chanting that the fans do. Mm-hmm. Right? He was trying to get them to stop during both times the games have been canceled because of it.
I know. There's so much to talk about in this game. It's crazy. You know what I mean?
And it's just, I feel bad for him because obviously no one wants to stop.
No. Nobody,
right? Like,
exactly. Nobody wants to say,
could,
I'm done.
If he could play until he died and be able to make the national team, he would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody would. But I think it's starting to hurt them in young goalies aren't getting the national experience they need. And he is allowing goals to go in that I don't think necessarily would go in.
Right. And I can second that because there have been times where the United States has played and we have played in kind of like more random events, right? Like when we were doing like the group stage games for Nations League and we were going to play against like St. Kitts, when Matt Turner would be in goal, like I would be the person going, I don't know, like really? Like,
yeah,
do we need him? You know what I mean? Right. Because like, and it's not like Ethan Horvath is not good. Like Ethan Horvath is a phenomenal goalie.
Correct.
He comes in and saves a penalty the last time this happens and was one of the key factors into us getting there. So my concern for Mexico is this happening because you actually don't have somebody else? Which I can't believe. Right, which I mean, I would find that difficult to believe just because of the depths of Mexico's team. But you do have to start to wonder, he clearly doesn't have it anymore. I get it was a championship game. I get it's the United States. I get you're trying to put yourself back on top. But now you're in a position where you have to go, all right, the United States has beat us fair and square. It's been a handful of number of years, right? The first time we beat you, maybe it was disrespectful. Maybe you felt like, your pride was hurt, your esteem was hurt because you don't hold us in high regard. It's been 5 years now. The United States is a legitimate world power in soccer. There is nothing wrong. It's not disgraceful to lose to us. There's no shame in losing to the United States anymore. Mexico needs to take this opportunity and go, let's focus on us, right? We got 2 more years. Copa America's coming. We need to be ready so that we can have a good performance at Copa America and we can put the best 20-something guys on the field when we host, because they're going to be playing their World Cup games in Mexico. You know that their first 2 group stage games are in Mexico. So that, they got to get in there and they got to shift that mentality. I like the changes we saw from their coaching. I do think that they've steadied the ship, right? After, during the World Cup and the nonsense and the drama and them firing multiple people fast. I feel like the ship is steadied.
I also think getting rid of some of the more hot-headed players
has helped
Mexico as well.
Losing Hector Herrera?
Yeah, not grabbing him for the squad. There's a couple other guys that they didn't take, and they went for some younger guys with not as much experience, but aren't as likely to do outrageously stupid things. And I think people might be like, well, it's hurting them because they're losing, but I think in the long run it's going to benefit them.
Agreed. So
because you don't want guys on your team that consistently throw challenges that could get them ejected.
Right. And it was one of the things that we predicted. Mexico statistically has a high likelihood, not a high level of red cards, because that makes it sound like there's 4 a game. But statistically, the probability of getting a red card in a Mexico game was well over 50%.
For a while.
And so, you and I had both made comments about how impressed we were by the refereeing. This is the first CONCACAF game that I've watched, and it's definitely the first CONCACAF final, Gold Cup or Nations League I've watched, that I felt like it wasn't even, not only was the game in control, there was never a doubt in my mind that it wasn't going to be in control. It was never close to getting out of control. There were never any weird moments.
The only time it got slightly close is the challenge that was thrown when Berhalter stepped on the field.
Yes, when they tried to light up Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams jumped up off the bench after he got subbed and screamed.
But the referee was right there.
He was.
Immediately.
And his demeanor was good.
Correct. And he handled it perfectly. He went over, a card was immediately out, talked to the guy, right? Got everybody to back it up.
He very much had the mentality of when guys would get in his face, he would look at them and say, no, I got it. I'm the ref. Let me do my job.
I got it.
Yep. Right? Look, I'm holding the card right here. You go back and mind your own business.
Unless
I'm going to take care of this.
One too.
Correct, unless you want it too. So I really like that. So let's start to break down the game a little bit. Obviously, it's really good when you don't get scored on in the first 30 seconds of the game, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't need to say that played a massive factor in the United States game plan. We saw Mexico decide to play a mid-block, okay? And rightly so. We know the United States has a nasty midfield. we know that that's where we're going to try to do all of the work. So as you watch the first half, what did you like from both sides, and what were you disappointed in from both sides?
So one of the things that I was worried about going into the matchup, when you read me the lineup for the US, I was extremely worried about Serginho Dest having to mark Lozano.
Yeah,
Because
he's fast.
Because
And
yes,
shout out to Haji Wright earning that starting spot. But yes, continue.
yes,
Yeah, Lozano and
but
Dest. That was going to be the
less,
matchup.
I was less worried about the actual matchup of like speed and more of Lozano's going to get under his skin. And Dest has that mentality of doing something stupid.
Which, if you're Lozano, you're going to do that.
And within the first 30 seconds, it happened.
Correct.
They played a ball. Serginho Dest took him down, thought it shouldn't have been a foul. It got called. They've got a free kick in the first minute from a relatively dangerous spot. Right? They play a cross in. It doesn't really do anything. But that reinforced the they know, right? Like everyone knows Dest is a hothead in CONCACAF. There's no way they don't. We've got our best player matched up against him. Let's get him mad. And I think Dest did a very good job of keeping it together. And I don't even want to try to fathom how he did some of the things he did with possession of the ball.
Oh, like Velcro. Never seen anything like that in my life. I legitimately thought the ball was like Velcro to his foot.
Yeah.
Incredible.
But, yeah, I obviously not giving up a goal is good in the first, 5 minutes. Having a couple of good chances in there as well helps build the morale. Like Christian Pulisic has a great opportunity.
Fantastic chances.
Possession, right?
And possession looked good. So what I noticed about the United States, and I was thinking about this in the car. The United States is a good team when the score is 0-0. We're a good team. The United States is really good when the score is 1-0. The United States is not as good when the score is 2-0. So I've noticed the United States plays their best soccer when the other team is down a goal. When we're up by 1 goal, the game opens up, it stretches more, we see a lot more possession. The times I've been the most disappointed with U.S. soccer, and it's probably just because like you're up 2-0, you're packing it in, like you just don't want to get scored on. Mexico looked the most dangerous after we scored our second goal.
And I do agree with you, but even that, they didn't look that dangerous.
No, right. And I'm not saying we looked bad, but I'm saying, like, if you took those three, when I broke down those 3 moments, we looked dangerous when it was 0-0, right? It was a game. Yep. I didn't really feel like Mexico had a chance at all. Did we have lots of chances? Not really, but we certainly saw the better play. As soon as it became 1-0, Mexico had to try to go after it and get one, and I felt like we really started to take advantage of the game. It started to really open up in our favor. They couldn't stick around in their mid-block as long. A lot more guys got free. And it sort of goes to, I'll make the segue into this, Jesse Marsch at halftime. I thought he talked for a long time. He talked for a lot longer than I was expecting him to do, and it kind of seemed like a couple other guys like Dempsey and Davies were like, why are you still talking? He was really critical of our inability to get guys in the midfield the ball in the way that it worked for them. And I liked what he had to say. It might have been too technical for most fans, but I liked his criticism of, Pulisic and Reyna and Robinson are now all in the same space. McKinney is trying to cut inside, but Des and Weah are now making the same runs. Like, why do we have all these guys doing the same thing? Like, why don't we break them up? How did you feel about those comments?
I didn't. I stepped away at halftime.
Okay, so how do you now feel about hearing those comments?
I mean, he's a coach, and he's coached, in the Premier League.
And he's not just any coach. He was a coach people thought were going to take over the men's team, right?
Correct. I think every coach has a different way of doing things. Obviously, Berhalter's method is sometimes not what we would like. But
Does it give you fear that this is going to continue with Berhalter, that we're going to find ourselves in situations where our guys manage to pull it out, but the tactics on the field are showing that maybe that shouldn't have happened?
I don't know. When you look at this game against Mexico, do you think our tactics on the field showed that we shouldn't win?
No, I'm more in the boat of we're playing this 4-3-3 with the purpose to be, let's let Tim Weah just go tear up the right-hand side. But all of the ways that we play is to knock the ball to Dest making a run up the right-hand side, which kind of like takes Tim Weah out of it, and Tim Weah is a really good player. And then we did the same thing with Robinson and Pulisic, and I'm like, maybe we should not do that. Like, maybe we should switch it up. Like, I don't know how,
Does it take him out of the play, or does it make the defender have to respect him? So I get that, like, we play the ball to Dest instead of Weah, but Weah is keeping that defender on him, and in a position where if Weah tries to make a run, the defender has to go with him.
Fair enough.
Which pulls space for Dest, and on the opposite side for Robinson when Pulisic does it. Right? So as much as it's like they're two guys trying to do the same thing, the defenders have to realize I can't just say, oh, they've been giving it to Dest all game. They're not going to play it to them.
Right.
I'll just go cut that angle off. And then all of a sudden we hit a through ball to Weah and he's in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It just takes one lapse of judgment to create an opportunity. And it goes very well at Tyler Adams' goal. Lapse of judgment. The defender to Mark Adams did not step to him in time.
Was anybody expecting him to hit that?
Doesn't matter. Look at all the space he has in front of him when he gets that ball.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he's not thinking, let's shoot. Like, I'm going to just push it in front of me and have a crack. I've got 15 yards of empty space. Let's go.
That's because he knew that he was about to come off the field.
Correct.
Because he was like, I have a minutes on my contract, and Bournemouth ain't gonna let me play.
Think about just the small lapse in judgment for that defender when McKinney plays the ball to Adams to stand there and not go pressure. He stands there for an extra second. Adams takes a touch towards goal and then just fires it as the defender closes him down. If that defender is already moving to close him down, Adams doesn't get that shot.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yep. Because and I think it wound up happening at halftime. I think it was Marsh who was saying, like, diagonal chip. He was, like, yelling it when they were watching from the booth. Because everybody was expecting, and that's what I was expecting. I was expecting Adams to hit a floater towards that back post and try to release those runners. And then all of a sudden the ball comes off his foot, and he just smashes.
Yes. And it's one of those things where as a defender, you can't cheat.
Right.
And know, oh, well, the U.S. has been playing this the whole time, so I'm just going to cheat and assume they're going to do that. And then all of a sudden, Tim Weah's played through. It's a 3-on-1 with Weah, Haji Wright, and Pulisic, and it's like, uh-oh, this isn't good.
Right.
Right?
And I guess that's the other side of that coin. Well, not the other side of the coin, but that's the other way to look at it. And I think you're right in that there's a very fair argument to say, sure, we got a lot of guys that are in these positions that all kind of play the positions, but it also can just be this embarrassment of riches. Like, who are you going to mark now? You have to mark everybody. You can't let even one person get through, because if you're expecting Dest to be the guy who makes the run, so you mark him, well, Weah can make the run. Well, McKinney can play a ball in underneath. Okay, so you're going to leave them. Well, what about Haji Wright, who's standing in
Tyler
there
Adams
defender,
can
right?
shoot from 40
Tyler
yards
Adams going to shoot from 40 yards out. Giovanni Reina can cut in on you, and he can beat guys and have a crack and have a go at it, right? Dest could cut back inside on his left foot and have a go with it. We saw him do that a couple times.
Playing, he went through like everybody.
Right. And so, like, offensively, we clearly had the firepower. I thought defensively it was even cleaner, right? I mean, every time they would play the ball up in the air, you made the same comment all the time. You basically were joking and saying, what's the worst that's going to happen? Mexico's going to kick the ball away again? They're going to kick the ball out of bounds? How many times? I mean, it felt like every time they got the ball, they did that, right?
The thing, Yeah, and another thing that seems interesting to me is, and I get a lot of teams, that's the attack strategy, right? Like you go down the wings, you play a ball into the box, right? Everyone does it. It's not just the U.S. Like you can look at Premier League, you can look at Serie A, you can look at the Bundesliga. A lot of their strategies are, unless they've got a really easy through ball, it's we're going to attack down the wings and then try to play across or find a guy who's unmarked in the box.
Right.
I don't understand why some teams attempt balls in the air when they're outmatched by a foot.
Correct. Yeah, that seemed like a terrible tactical decision to go. The United States statistically just doesn't lose balls in the air.
It's like
we're shorter than them. Let's go for it.
It's like Japan trying to win headers against the Netherlands.
Right. It's like just don't do it.
Right, and I get that every so often a guy's going to get free of a mark, and the ball's going to be well placed, and it doesn't matter the size difference, right? Like if a guy's unmarked, he's unmarked. Like look at the Jamaica game. That guy's unmarked. Right. Do I think he outjumps Tim Ream or Walker Zimmerman? No. But it doesn't matter because there's nobody there.
Right. But if I'm marking Erling Haaland, you're playing him the ball in the air.
Correct.
Because what am I going to do? Nothing,
I mean,
right?
You're
it's
playing
like
the ball Erling Haaland in the air, even if the guy's the same size as him.
Right, exactly.
That
but
man can get his lower half above the crossbar.
Yeah, the man basically floats, levitates. It's crazy.
So it's one of those things where, like, I think I made the comment to you on set pieces and corner kicks. They had one target. Their tallest player was their target, but it didn't matter. Now, granted, one time we had Tyler Adams marking him, but the guy fouled him. He fouled Tyler Adams.
Right.
Because he jumped up and over him.
Can't do that.
And he never looked like a threat. Mexico had a couple of chances, right? But all in all, their aerial services, I don't think ever threatened the U.S.
No, I don't think so either.
And it's one of those where it's like, you've tried it for 70 minutes. You're down 2 goals. Why are you still doing it?
Right, it's not working. It's not working.
And I will give credit to Lozano because late they were down 2-0. He makes a really nice move on Dest, cuts in and has a shot. The shot's right at Matt Turner. Right. But it was something different. They hadn't done that.
Exactly. And he's one of those guys where there's a reason that you know him. Because that's all right. All he needs is one chance that he's going to score. And like I said, it's the toughest being up. We say the same thing in hockey. It's tough when you're up by 2. Right? It's like the most dangerous lead you can have because the momentum shift from the other team picking up that goal and going, now we only need one more to tie it, can just be backbreaking. So
yeah, and so seeing Mexico switch it up from Lozano was nice as a perspective of why are you repeatedly smashing your head against a door that's closed when there's a door over there that could be unlocked? Like, why don't you try that one before you repeatedly smash this one? I will say we do get lucky that VAR bails us out.
Right? But now, it's the right call, though, right?
People are going to be like, well, it's not luck because that's what should have been called. Correct. But it wasn't what was called. Before VAR, that's a penalty.
Correct.
It's not getting overturned. The referee's like, I already blew it. I called a penalty. I can't overturn this. Regardless of how much we see on the Jumbotron of him not connecting.
Right.
It's been called.
Correct.
So it's nice. It's nice for VAR to do what it is supposed to. There's a clear and obvious error.
And VAR also does something else.
Yeah, it gives the other guy a yellow card.
Which is something that we haven't seen a lot of, and that was originally the rule. The rule was originally if VAR reviews something and we see that not only was it an obvious error, but it was caused by player embellishment, then we're actually going to give the yellow card to that player. So just what a shift in the game for Mexico to go, all right, nice, we're about to claw one of these back, to go, no, actually, not only are you not going to claw one back, your striker's going to get a yellow card.
Correct. And that's the guy that they targeted in the air. Who was it? Acuna? Right? Or is it Alvarez?
I think it's Alvarez.
So they're midfielder.
Because it wasn't Jimenez.
No, yeah.
And it wasn't, it might have been Pineda. I might have been Pineda.
Pineda didn't get a yellow
Didn't get
card.
a yellow, so then it has to be a tuna.
Or it's Jimenez. But I don't... I think it was Ortuna. When did he get his yellow card? Let's look at the timeline. Yeah,
No,
it was Jimenez.
It was Jimenez? Okay.
Yeah, because after the penalty, Mexico's penalty is overturned, and then Santiago Jimenez gets a yellow card.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, it was Santiago Jimenez.
So, like...
I was just happy that VAR actually handed out that yellow card, because that's just something that we've been needed to see for forever. And I was honestly impressed because I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting VAR to just call it off. And the commentators were like, oh, so we should see a yellow card here for simulation. And then we did see it. And I was like, dang. And just like, and so I think that was around the time where actually, I'll let you finish and then I'll make a segue into our final point.
So I think one of the reasons the yellow card was handed out is probably 2 minutes before that, Jimenez and Robinson are going down the wing, and he beats Robinson, and I think you made the comment that Robinson's hand catches his foot as he's going down.
Yes, as he wipes out, he doesn't do it on purpose, but his hand slaps his heel, and that's what caused him to trip.
But Jimenez takes another 2 steps afterwards and then falls over. And I think that played into the referee's decision. Also, Jimenez is like he's in agonizing pain.
Right,
for this penalty kick, and for the VAR to look at it and you weren't even touched.
Correct.
How are you in pain?
It's for you to say that you got kicked in the head and you didn't. And he didn't even come close.
You had just basically done something that the referee saw as embellishment.
Correct.
Now you're doing it again in the penalty box. I think that played into it. I think if that was the first time the referee had seen it, he might not have gotten a yellow. I think but I think because of the previous incident, you do see that there.
Correct. So to segue into our final point, and this is obviously something that's been belabored in a previous episode, so we won't. Jimenez gets this yellow card. We make the substitution right. Chris is like, man, how spoiled are we that we can bring Musa off our bench, right? Right before that happened, okay? So we're talking 75th minute. I sent a text to our group, and I say, there's no way this game doesn't end early, right? Because Mexico's going to start chanting. And sure enough, Mexico had started chanting. It's the same chant.
Fans, not Mexico, the team.
Correct. You're right. I should specify. The fans specifically behind the United States goal, behind Matt Turner's goal, continued their chant. It's a chant that Mexico has chanted not just in the United States games. They have chanted at every game that they've been at. It doesn't matter if it's Brazil, if it's Portugal, the United States, Guatemala. They don't care. This is something that they do. The chant that they do, we had talked about before, it goes against CONCACAF's everything.
Yes. Hate, no room for hate anywhere.
There's no room for hate anywhere. So, on the one hand, we have CONCACAF has made this decision, and so as soon as you start to enforce it, you have to go all the way. Correct. So as soon as that first announcement happened, there is no more, we're just going to continue to make the announcement and let the game just kind of play its course. Because now they're calling your bluff. Yeah, you go.
So from what I saw, and this could be wrong, but I did read some articles on it. The reason multiple announcements were made was because after the first announcement, when it happened again, security was throwing people out.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
So security had already started finding people and getting rid of them. So the announcement then happened again because they had believed that they had gotten the majority of people. So they went back to step one.
Fair. So they did the approach of if everybody is charging, I don't need to shoot everybody. I only need to shoot a couple of them, and then you'll fear for your life, right?
Yes.
If we watch these people get charged and get thrown out, I don't want to get thrown out of the game, so I guess I'm going to stop chanting what my neighbor was chanting, except it didn't work.
It didn't work. So then then they got to the point of they read the announcement again, thinking and then they were like, okay, we're going to start this protocol again. And then it was, we heard it, and then the referee was like, we're gonna take a break.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, apparently, one of the articles I read, security threw something like 400 people.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, the footage that they showed of people pouring out of the stadium in those sections. So the first time that they do the stoppage in the game, it's obviously.
But I don't know if any of that's true. Like, I don't know if it's actually 400. I'm just saying, like,
right. But I'm just saying,
article, like,
yeah, correct. So the first time they do the stoppage in play, obviously, I think everybody's for it. Right? There were a couple Mexican players that you could see look at the referee saying, like, come on, dude, like, just who cares? Like, let's just finish this game, right? Like,
yeah, like, we know we've lost. Can we just get
correct,
it
exactly.
with?
And that's how I interpreted it. So I didn't interpret it as the Mexican soccer team saying this isn't a big deal. Why are we stopping play the game?
Yeah,
they just viewed it as saying, like, this isn't gonna stop. So we might as well just finish this up, right? Because like I do feel like the Mexican players, because like you had said, like Ochoa is trying to stop them. Some of the other players are trying to stop them. It's probably very embarrassing to be sitting there on the field, right? And you're representing your country. You're already getting beat. It's 2-0. You know your fans aren't happy, and now your fans are representing your country like that. Correct. So the first time that they do it, I think it's fine. The second time the referee brings everything together, I think that at that point it was completely unnecessary. You said it was 6 extra minutes of stoppage time. We're in the 96th minute.
Yeah, but
call the game.
This is.
I mean, you don't give me the on principle thing.
No, I'm not even going to give you on the principle thing. The game stops the second time. Does it even start back up?
I think they played like 5, 6, 7 seconds or something like that after that.
Right. So he basically did stop the game. Right. So like. Not saying like they should have played those remaining seconds afterwards, but like he stops it, brings all the players in, lets everybody go back out, puts the ball back in play, and then just blows the game dead. What was the purpose there?
Correct. Yeah. So you're in the same boat as me. I'm like, I don't just blow it. So it didn't work, right? This isn't working. It's gonna happen again. We know it's gonna happen again. You and I talked a lot about what on earth can you even do, right? You can't really ban Mexican fans from the game because when you buy the ticket, there's no way of you knowing if they're a fan from Mexico, right? There's just no way. Most of the Mexican fans live in the United States.
Yep.
Right? That's a reason why, like, these people aren't just flying in from like the Yucatan to watch these Mexican. They're not doing it.
They just need to do what FIFA has done to national teams in the past. Of when England had their racism stint, you just don't get fans at any of your home games. The next 3 home games.
Right.
And it's not friendlies. The friendlies didn't count because of where it took place. Like this was a finals.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be games that matter. So
correct.
World Cup qualifying, Nations League qualifying, Copa America. Imagine if FIFA puts a ban on and says, "Sorry, Mexico, you don't get fans for your first two games in Copa America."
Right. But so if now
how much money is that?
But let's play the advocate. I'll play
group stage.
Yeah, I'll push back against that because I'm curious to where we're going with this now. So, what happens if Mexico then says, "Look, those fans that did that at the USA game, they don't live in Mexico. We can't control them. Why are you punishing Mexico in Mexico?"
Mexican Federation has to make a stand on it, and if they're not doing anything, they have to get punished. Like the England national team made a statement afterwards, obviously saying like, "Why did you guys do this?"
Correct, exactly. Like we're not, and their stuff was pretty wild.
How dare first of all, like why? Second of all, it's really embarrassing to us. And third, now look what you've made it. What's happened to us? We literally have to play games without fans because of a select group of people. Everybody gets punished, and it kind of worked. Like they still have issues, but it kind of worked. Like it's not as bad.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's kind of what we talked about in the last time we brought this up. Is like it's kind of always you're always going to have problems. So you're really just in the gray area of how bad of a problem are we willing to have.
The problem with this one is that it is allowed to happen in Mexico. Right. So every single Mexican fan in Mexico that goes to games in Mexico can chant that and nothing will happen.
Correct. Which is, and we talked about this again, right. The nature of soccer is that it encompasses cultures of the whole world, every single country, which means, and I'll give examples of something that you'll get the idea of where I'm going, but it won't be what we're talking about. There are some countries where you're allowed to play an instrument at a soccer game. There are some countries where you're allowed to play instruments. There are countries where you're not allowed to play instruments. If you're not allowed to play an instrument in a country, you don't get to bring your instrument from one country to that country and play it. They're still going to ban it. It was no different than this.
It was like it was an FA Cup in England, and it was some 4th tier team playing a 2nd tier team, right? And the 4th tier team, their home games are filled with these like blow up dolphins or something. I don't remember exactly
just something
what
absurd. Yeah, that's what they do.
And obviously, the Premier League says however many tickets are allowed to be sold to the other team's fans. The home team basically said, you guys can bring those as long as you don't do X, Y, and Z with them.
Right.
But as soon as something like that happens, they're all gone.
Correct.
And the fans did it. They didn't do anything dumb with the stuff.
Which is exactly how it should be. Because, I'm in Toledo, and they're right. Well, not in Toledo now, but I'm near Toledo, right? So the Toledo Walleye. We have a bunch of stuff that we do for the hockey team. One of the things that the Toledo Walleye do is that the first goal of every game that the home team scores, there is one person, they own like a market, they throw a walleye onto the ice. Right? So just like when the Detroit Red Wings would throw the octopus, right? Like we are...
Or the catfish for the Predators.
Correct. Yep. So, and since we're underneath the Red Wings, as far as like the franchises go, that's what we do. Well, fans went to another team's game and threw a walleye on the ice after the walleye scored. And they got chewed out. They got chewed out not only by that rink and almost got thrown out of the game there. They got
by the Walleyes organization.
They got chewed out by the Walleye organization. Because it's the same thing with our national anthem. I don't do it. Everybody yells, hit somebody after they say wave. So like, oh, say does the Star Spangled Banner yet? Wave. And then we have a pause and you'll hit somebody. You don't do that at other places.
Correct.
Because other places, right? So it's really like, this is obviously a much more extreme version because this is offensive. This is
it's like
attacking.
Fans chanting Rangers suck.
Right. Exactly. So
like they don't do that at other places. They just do it in their stadium because that's what you do.
Correct. And so now here we are. Granted, this isn't in the same category as any of those chants, right?
No,
we're understanding that this is more of like what FIFA's trying to eliminate, right? FIFA's not trying to eliminate you throwing walleye on the ice, but it's that concept of it's very tough to regulate things when they're acceptable one place and they're not acceptable somewhere else.
Correct. If you go
unless
to your friend's
the federations get pressure on them to do it, right? So if you're right, if FIFA says this is our rule, and if you don't want to participate, you don't get to play, and FIFA starts putting sanctions on Mexico, and Mexico starts suffering financial consequences because of FIFA and because of CONCACAF, right? Exactly. Then we might see a difference.
If you enter your friend's house and he happens to be Asian and their policy is you take your shoes off at the door.
Right. You don't wear your shoes
Are you going to take your shoes off at the door?
Right. You're going to take them off.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm taking my shoes off.
Right? And it's the same with, they'll probably take them off at your house. And you could say, like, hey, you don't really need to do that. You can keep them on if you want. But to them, like, this is a good example. Like, this isn't a great example because, like, they're not doing anything stupid.
Right.
Right? Like, but it's that whole, if you were to walk into their house with your shoes on,
right? Because like, imagine there was a governing body who said, whenever you go into somebody else's house, you have to take your shoes off. It doesn't matter what happens in your house, but whenever you go to somebody else's house, you have to take your shoes off. Everybody would get in the habit of taking their shoes off because otherwise you'd get in trouble. And now we have a team who's saying it doesn't matter whose house I go into, I'm not taking my shoes off.
So one last thing on this, and we can wrap it up. Tim, if you haven't seen it, there's a interview, post-game chat with Vin Jr., where he basically breaks down into almost tears talking about how he is being just...
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Right? It's recent. He's had trouble in the past. And it's one of those things where it's like, this is what we're trying to avoid. Right?
Hold on. I think. Am I allowed to play
Consider
it?
this your sign to
stock
up on
I mean, I don't know if you should or not because I don't
think we get. Well, yeah.
It's one of those where it's like you could just say like, here's the link. you could make it a comment on the post. Here's the link if someone wants to watch it.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll link
Right?
it. I'll try to put it in here.
I'm sure if people search Vinicius Jr. racism post game,
it's about a minute long, so let's see if I can see what some of the things he said. I need to focus really hard every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started crying. I mean, he started crying about 20 seconds in. Let's see what he says.
And it's not.
He's still crying. He's still crying. Hold on. He hasn't said anything yet.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to avoid. A player that's so good.
I just want to play football. I just want to play.
Yeah, he's so good that he's afraid to step on the field because if he does a small thing wrong, he gets berated for days.
Right.
People hang effigies of him off bridges. People light effigies of him on fire. People send nasty worded things to him via, social media. And all because, he missed an empty net while running at full speed.
And he said something that speaks to exactly what we are saying. And what he says is, if I leave, I'm giving them what they want.
Correct.
So it's why CONCACAF needs to get more involved. It's why FIFA needs to get more involved. It's why there needs to be pressure on the Mexican Federation Club, right? Because I don't know that Mexico isn't already doing that, right? Correct. I don't know. We don't know. I haven't looked into it. Maybe Mexico is. Maybe Mexico has already made a statement to their fans saying, like, guys, cut the crap. We don't know, right? But if we don't, if we just let the game go on and we just say this is this is life, deal with it, then we're accepting that, well, then it's allowed to get worse or it's allowed to continue or whatever. And then you're right, players like Vinicius Jr., who are experiencing things that are in the same caliber, right? Some people would argue worse. I would argue worse, but it's certainly the same caliber.
Death threats are probably worse than
okay, sorry. I didn't realize he was getting death threats. Yeah. So, yeah. Infinitely worse. Then, yeah. Like, he didn't get a chance to leave. Like, you can't do that. So, like, I do think that we have to come up with another method. Like, I think where CONCACAF has started is good, where FIFA is at is good. But I think the next step needs to be, look, you guys have already had 2 strikes. The next time this happens, you guys are just going to get banned from games. And maybe it's you get banned for 2 games, and then if it happens again, there's no more warnings. It's going to go to 4 games. Maybe you get a year suspension without fans. Like, we have to do something to deter this because so far nothing is being deterred. And I like that you bring this up because when we said this 2 years ago when this happened, it's not just the United States. The EPL experiences this way worse. CONCACAF, yep, and in like Latin American soccer, referees have been killed, right? Yes. I love the passion that we have for this sport, but it's a game, and we need to make sure that people understand.
Passion, you could have passion and not want to kill a referee.
Correct, because it's it's not your life. It's not affecting your life.
Think about you and me right now. We probably have as much passion as a lot of the people in Latin America for our soccer team. Have you ever once thought about going out there and killing one of the referees because they were calling the game poorly?
No, not once. And I've been the person to scream at my television, at the players on our team. And I'm fully aware of how lunatic that sounds. That a grown man is yelling at an 18-year-old.
When the U.S. got out of the group stage, not obviously the last World Cup because we didn't qualify, but the one before that, Tim got on top of our roof and was waving the American flag.
That's right.
Right?
And in the same token, when Ricardo Clark turned the ball over to Kevin Prince Boateng Jr., whatever his name was, I screamed that you should never play again. That I hope that you never, ever get a chance to step on this field and represent our country ever again. Right?
I think you said that about Michael Bradley, too.
I said that about a lot of people. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't go DM them on social media telling them I think they should die. I didn't send them letters in the mail or email. Right. I didn't do that because when the emotions settle down, you're just disappointed, but it's a game. And you go to the next game. And you try to put that passion in the right spot by going, you know what? I'm sad that we lost, but I'm glad that you're playing. And I'm glad that there's a team that I can cheer for. Because the reality is, if I saw Michael Bradley in person, if I saw Ricardo Clark in person, I wouldn't have anything bad to say to them. I might not be interested in meeting them, but that's completely different than being like,
It's
get out of my face.
There's a lot of if people really want to see what some of this stuff is doing to players, unfortunately, Vinicius Jr. is getting the brunt of a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stuff you can look up for people. This is the last thing we're saying, and then we're
This is
done.
our 5th last time.
No, yeah. That is something to look at to see what FIFA is trying to prevent and why they're trying to prevent it.
Mm-hmm.
But enough of that.
No, because so hold on. I will now give my closing thing on that, and then you can send us out. The other key thing to note, because obviously these conversations happen a lot, and one of the big pieces of advice that I've gotten that I give to everybody and I've shared is it doesn't do you any good to read the comments, right?
No,
because the reality is that there are a lot of people on the internet that are going to throw racial slurs around, all types of slurs around, that don't actually mean them, and they're completely empty and worthless because it's just a keyboard warrior, right? What Vinicius Jr. is talking about is not.
They don't have the threat of being punched in the face for saying it.
But I'm saying that because what I want to be clear that the situations that you and I are talking about, like with Vinicius Jr. and others, it's not that. He's not getting messages behind a keyboard. People are approaching him in public.
So it's chanting in the stadiums.
Correct. And so it's one thing if a stranger says something on the internet, right? The rules don't feed the troll. Just pretend they're not a real person and go away. It doesn't matter. They're probably a bot anyway, and they don't have a life. They're in somebody's basement. But if somebody was to approach you on the street and get in your face and tell you those things, that is completely different. Now it's real. Correct. Now it's personable. Yep. So I just wanted to put that out there. You can go ahead and close this out now.
So next podcast, unless we talk about something, something big happens in U.S. soccer news, like, someone gets signed to a Premier League team, we really want to talk about it, or a young guy coming up is doing something. Technically the under 22s, I think, Olympics would be this summer.
Yep.
And then the U.S. also has some friendlies against some South American teams.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up in June, and then obviously end of June is Copa.
Yep. So there is going to be a lot of U.S. soccer coming in. We're going to try to keep you guys posted in the meantime. I want to try to just kind of give random updates to other things. Like I'll probably do one episode just talking like some updates with the U.S. women's team, some updates on like the state of MLS soccer, just to get you guys filled in on that if you're not following, and just kind of do those things as well as keep it. But yeah, like Ryan said, it's going to be a few months before we get the U.S. back in action. But it is looking exciting. It is looking good. Ryan, it has been a pleasure to do this with you. I'm looking forward to it. We got Copa America rolling into the World Cup. It's coming back to back to back, and it feels like we just got done with the World Cup. So soccer's really picking up. I'm excited. This podcast has really helped get us there. I hope it has helped get you guys there too. Please go ahead, like, comment, share, everything. We are starting to see a lot more activity in it, so we appreciate that. That's all we want to do is just engage with fans who are just as passionate as we are. So until next time, guys, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We will catch you later.